Hey guys, Rich from Richmond Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. Only 2 more sleeps until the big man comes, so I'm really happy to be able to share with you guys today a very special episode of the Weekly Bugle that we recorded a couple of weeks back now with a whole great group of guests that we had on. We had Andy and Nicky on from the Ozark Gladiators, we had Jonah on from the Sinister Foes, we had that 70s bloke, Chris Challacombe. We had Web Warrior Protocols himself, Arun. We had Daz the Wargaming Dad, Wargaming Luke from the Wargaming Luke YouTube show. And of course, last but in no ways least, Quinn himself as well. So I really hope you enjoy this one, guys. We had a real blast doing a bit of a roundtable session, talking about a year of MCP, all of the highs, all of the lows, and everything that we're looking forward to for next year as well. So I hope you enjoy the show. Well, guys, I thought it'd be a really nice idea to get a group of us content creators together to really talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol, where it is as a game at the moment, and really go through the year. We've had a lot of really cool, new, exciting toys to play with. We've had revamps of some old characters that were loved once and have maybe been left on the display shelf for quite some time, and a whole bunch of new rules to talk through. So we're going to break the year down to start off with into 4 quarters. And starting off then in January, January, February and March, we had quite a lot. So we started off the year with the announcement of the Inhumans. And I've picked out one tactics card as part of that it's been quite impactful, to the point where we may talk about it once again towards the end of the year, which was
Royal Family, yeah?
That's the one. Wow. Inhuman Royal Family, which was Bitter Rivals. We got what I thought was the amazing X-Force Deadpool trailer, which was really, really cool. We got that in February. We then, in March, got Sin and Viper announced, and we also got Heroes for Hire, so Luke Cage and Iron Fist announced as well. So, Arun, going to you first. Of the sort of first 3 months, what were the things that you really enjoyed out of it?
I don't know about necessarily enjoyed. I think Bitter Rivals is the thing that had the biggest impact, and that I sort of felt the most. I really liked the Heroes for Hire, and again, I don't know if I enjoyed being on the receiving end of them, but they really shook things up a little bit. I mean, we saw Iron Fist just absolutely everywhere in loads of rosters. So they were the most notable things for me. Sadly, the Inhumans themselves were a little bit underwhelming, and so were X-Force. But I think on the horizon, they're going to get some really cool things and definitely shake up the meta a bit when they get a couple of more releases.
Most anticipated release was probably Cable for me of this year, and he kind of didn't really deliver entirely. Okay, Chris, as you've done that, what are your thoughts on that, on the sort of first quarter of the year?
It was mostly them announcing stuff, which sounded really cool, and then it came out and wasn't.
Andy, Nicky, what about you guys? What were your sort of most enjoyable? You guys must have enjoyed the trailer they put together for X-Force and Deadpool.
I'm a huge Cable fan. Sure, people have seen me wear the shirt through some of the games. But honestly, and I'm disappointed how he plays. The thing that got me from a story point of view was Black Bolt. One of my favorite comic books of all time is World War Hulk. And without going too much into the storyline, at the very beginning, when he's just so angry, no one can stop him, the first person on his hit list is Black Bolt. And as we know, Black Bolt has that voice that can break bone. And he punches Black Bolt hard. And Black Bolt's like, I'm just going to let go. And he's like, scream as loud as you can. And he does. And Hulk starts smiling. He said, scream harder. And that's when the frame breaks. And you see he's just completely pummeled Black Bolt. So in my nerdy phase, I was like, I can recreate that now. Now, with former Hulk, that would never have happened. Upgraded Hulk, that can totally happen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And Nicky, what about you?
I think that was Iron Fist and Luke Cage came out then, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
That was my favorite. Yeah. And I think because I know the characters better than the other ones that came out, and it was just really fun from a narrative point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like them. I really enjoyed them. And I think it was Arun, I think it was you mentioned, wasn't it, that he all of a sudden became especially with the release of some of the other bigger characters later in the year that we'll talk about, but he became the sort of 3-threat splash, bringing his tactics card with him in a lot of rosters, and we did see him played quite a lot. What about you, Jonah?
I was just going to say, I predicted that Iron Fist would overtake Valk as the top 3 threat in the TTS leagues, and so it proved. For me, it's the Foosh. Deadpool's Foosh. Can't believe no one's mentioned it. I love Deadpool, and I thought that was just so characterful, and I absolutely put it on my model, and I dislike anybody who doesn't, because it looks so much better with it.
Yeah, my Foosh is 100% on there. Yeah, absolutely. Quinn, what about you?
So I actually played a fair bit of Inhumans as they were coming out. Yeah, like I did enjoy them. It's just that what I found was I had to use Zemo a lot with them, because then you stack the rerolls and you sort of make this castle to murder things. Yeah, it's kind of a shame what ended up happening to them, but equally, Medusa fucking needed it.
She did. She absolutely did. I'm just looking around. Luke, did you go? You didn't know?
I haven't been, mate. Yeah, no.
We'll edit that bit out. Quinn, thanks for that. Luke, what do you think?
So I'd say I would agree with Jonah, to be fair, with Deadpool. Probably first quarter would be my favourite model that came out of it. Really cool model. In terms of like gameplay perspective, the Heroes for Hire pack, obviously really cool. So like the Luke Cage Iron Fist. Iron Fist has obviously gone on now to be, as Jonah said as well, one of the best 3 threats. So from a competitive perspective as well, huge model to have for the rest of the year, and especially as I play Midnight Suns and I enjoy them. Very big character for them, so yeah.
Oh, excellent. On to the second quarter then, and I think, and I want to say this, and guys in the UK, keep me honest here. This is when lockdown kind of stopped for us, I believe, wasn't it, during Q2?
So
we actually got to start rolling some real dice rather than playing just on TTS, which was very, very well received. I must admit, I was fed up of sat in front of my screen rolling dice. And I think, Arun, that first event that we had at Elysium, where I think it was me and you in the final, we'd both gone 3-0, hadn't we, onto the final table. And it was my Brotherhood versus, what were you playing again? I was in Web Warriors, wasn't it, for a change? So all of a sudden, I don't know if the rest of you guys had this, but all of a sudden I was looking, going, I need to paint so many figures, so many characters, because they were all lined up and they were put together really nicely and Zenith all primed and everything else. But then I sort of look at them and go, they'll do them another time. But then all of a sudden we needed to start painting our characters up as well. And we got quite a lot. And I think that second quarter of the year brought some quite big changes to the meta that have had big effects even to date now. So in April, we got Mr. Sinister, who obviously brought some brand new mechanics into the game in his cloning banks. Got Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, yay Brotherhood. We got in May, we got Amazing Spider-Man, Black Cat. We then got the Spider Foes wave, so Lizard, Craven, Carnage. In June, we got Sam Wilson and War Machine. We also got Jean Grey, Cassandra Nova, and then Omega Red. So some really, really big sort of meta-defining changes in that month. Probably the most obvious one being Sam Wilson, who I think when I first did my rating of him said that he's rubbish. I don't like his leadership ability. He's never going to do anything with Avengers, like C tier, because I just hated the idea of his leadership reacting to when somebody was dazed.
The creator's curse. How time changes things.
So a lot happened. Daz, come to you first. What were your sort of highs and indeed maybe lows of that sort of Q2 wave?
Well, to me, it had to be getting more Brotherhood characters. I'd been playing Brotherhood for so long. It was just time to get more Brotherhood. The Scarlet Witch, she was so popular at the time because of the TV series and everything was about to hit, wasn't it? Or just hit. And it was just like, it was perfect timing.
Yeah, it was really good. Arun, what about you?
So I actually had a release in that period of time, didn't I? There was one for me. There was Amazing Spider-Man and Black Cat. Initially, I was really looking forward to Spider-Man and didn't really care much for Black Cat, and then that's sort of been flipped on its head. So I've not used Amazing Spider-Man as much, whereas Black Cat's sort of an auto-type for Web Warriors now. I think, like you said, that sort of that few months is probably what's defined the meta this year. I think. I don't like the word meta, but that is what sort of the releases in that period are what really changed everything. And I think a lot of that is still staples at the minute in what we're seeing people play.
Yeah. So I just want to double check. So we were both 2 for 2. So the characters that we both said were not going to be very good, Black Cat for you and Sam for me, both turned out to be groundbreaking. Okay, cool. Jonah, what about yourself?
Easy one. This for me, it's got to be the Spider Foes. The written content I've got out there, published under my name, but written with a few other guys as well. But I absolutely love Spider-Man. I rewatched or started rewatching the 90s cartoon with my daughter recently. Like I was so hyped for those models. They're all amazing models. They were a bit, but I still had loads of fun playing with them. And now they're going to be real good.
Well, maybe with the exception of one.
Yeah, there's one of them that is a little sad.
He's very sad. It's very sad. I don't know. Andy, Nicky, what about you guys?
For me, it was Jean Grey, because I love her so much. I watched the animated X-Men when I was a kid, and she was my very favorite character. So I just wanted to play her. I didn't care how good she was. So,
but she turned out to be good.
She turned out pretty good, yeah.
So I was just going to say, you weren't more excited about Cassandra Nova than Jean Grey? Was that?
Andy.
Yeah, I was like, I have to explain it, but why did they pick her? So yeah, that was. I still don't quite understand that one, but for me, it was a tie between Carnage and Omega Red. I'd always liked Omega Red as a character in the X-Men comics, but Carnage. There's something about him. I mean, there was a lot of really good releases during this whole time period. So really, it's hard to narrow that down. But Carnage, Omega Red.
Yeah, it was a good few months. I've been on the receiving end of more than one Carnage Doom Prophecy, or you've got combo, and it can be quite devastating, to say the least.
Well, you won't be seeing it no more.
No, I won't be seeing it anymore. Now. Yes. I think the thing that I really liked with Omega Red was they sort of introduced this new dynamic to special conditions. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, it felt like special conditions were just like an extra bonus thing that you got to put out there, maybe with the exception of Stagger. But to then have characters who all of a sudden did certain things based on other characters having these special conditions, I really liked those game mechanics. It seemed to add another level and another depth into the game. Chris, what about you?
I think most people have touched on them, because I was really excited about Spider Foes. Scarlet Witch, I played load of. I think the main thing was actually being able to go to events. Like I was there with you and Arun at that first Elysium event. I went to the second event. Just being able to actually finally play in person with other people and go to events, which I hadn't done for a year almost, was that was the big thing for like the end of that quarter for me. Just like June, just brilliant. I can see people, I can play games, I can try these new models. It was just so much fun.
It's when you met me, isn't it, Chris? And it's just never been the same, has it?
It's when you wrecked me with a Corvus, and so Brawl and everyone's talk about Web Warriors are really good. That's why I've always been like, I don't believe it. The first 2 times I played it was Corvus.
Once we started playing the game in person, sort of in the UK and things, and rolling real dice in these new waves, by sort of this point, had anyone changed their affiliation? Had any of these releases made them move away from? Obviously, Arun, you just take yourself to one side whilst people answer this question, because Web Warriors for life and all that, right? But did these new releases, Jonah, you obviously mentioned Spider Foes, which there wasn't really much to play with previously, was there, until these releases? But did anybody sort of change what they were playing as part of this?
Yeah, when I played at that first event at Elysium where you were, Rich, because Scarlet Witch had just come out, so I could play with Scarlet Witch, and I wouldn't have played them I would never have played Brotherhood if Scarlet Witch hadn't dropped into them, I don't think.
Yeah. Jonah, you were going to say, sorry?
Yeah, I'm amazed at Arun's singular focus, but I do about 20, 25 games in affiliation, and that's it for me. I need to be on to something else. And as soon as I saw the Spider Foes models, I was like, I'm definitely playing them when they come out. I can't wait. And I got them all painted really quickly. I'm surprised that you're painting, actually. I've done amazing for painting this year because of our lockdowns. Painted 130 models this year.
130? Wow.
Yeah. Got a spreadsheet and everything.
That's, you've got a problem. Sorry, you've got a large collection when you have to keep track of everything on a spreadsheet in terms of what you've painted. Daz, what about you? Because obviously you're a through and through, or have been a big Black Order player sort of ever since their release. Were you tempted by any of these new affiliations to step away from Thanos and the Motley Crew, or?
Well, yeah, I was looking at Sam Spam and stuff, but I couldn't go to tournaments and have the brain power to play that for 2 hours straight, taking it down to the time limit and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know what Quinn knows how it feels.
Luke, what about you? Did you change affiliation? Were there any highs, any lows?
I mean, to be honest, mate, I didn't start going to tournaments really with a lot of you guys until second half of the year, really. So I was a lot more casual player beforehand, before that kind of these kind of releases were coming out anyway. So for me, it was just a case of testing them all and having a go with everything, which was nice because we did have a lot of releases during that period. So it was really cool to try it all out. And much like yourself, at the time when Sam came out, I had no idea what that would have become now that we look back at it. But it is what it is, and from a competitive perspective now, it's pretty nuts what it's turned into, really, isn't it? But yeah, and as Jonah was saying about Spider Foes, I think we'll probably do more releases next year for Spider Foes. I'm hoping anyway. But you'll probably see a massive boost in players after the new Spider-Man movie as well, I would imagine. Probably including myself. I'll probably get hyped and jump on the Spider Foes train. We'll see.
And now you can have multiple Spider-Men and indeed multiple Peter Parkers in your roster. So it's even more like potential what's going to happen in the movie as well. So yeah. Q3 then. So that is July, August, and September. We obviously had the big sort of Convocation mystical wave. Started off with Moon Knight and Blade, so we got introduced to the Midnight Sun. So some amazing characters, some really, really nice looking miniatures. We then got the Convocation trailer, which obviously showed us, what was it, Ancient One, Baron Mordo, New Doctor Strange, all those things, Dormammu. And I think it was the only one that I did a trailer reaction to. And when it sort of panned back out and you actually saw the size of Dormammu, I don't know about everybody else, but I was like a little kid like going, oh, they've made him so big. And then Mini-Stravaganza. Now, we'll maybe talk about Mini-Stravaganza separately, but let's just talk about that sort of Midnight Sun's whole Convocation wave and Dormammu, because I think that changed things up quite a lot, didn't it, for the game as well, and really changed the balance in terms of mystic attacks and how, not necessarily how good they were, but how rare they were, how overpowered they were, and sort of brought them more in line. So, Chris, what were your thoughts on that whole sort of mystical wave, if you like?
I have to say, like, I was always a bit underwhelmed by Convocation at the time because they looked cool. They had all these moving pieces, but I'm waiting for someone to go, this is how you play them. This is what you can do, because there's so many moving pieces. They seem really complicated. I still quite like Blade. Actually, Moon Knight was a massive one because I think when he came out, people were like, oh, he's only okay. But when you put him on the table and play him right, he does amazing things. But Dormammu is the main thing for me, mainly because, I jumped from, you may have noticed, I jumped from affiliation to affiliation. During that quarter, I played 18 games with A-Force in tournaments, and I was bored out of my mind. I only did it for the badge on Longshanks. I hated it by the end of it. I was sick of She-Hulk because of all you've got, and certain people, rich. So being able to then play Dormammu, I can just play whatever I want. I can put Dormammu on the table. I can just bring anything else and make it well. I love that. Just being able to play. I'm just going to rock up with some figures and Dormammu. It's so much fun. I love Dormammu.
Has anyone got any thoughts on Convocation? Because I've got to admit, I'm going to hold my hands up here. Is that
my brain?
I'm in the same boat as Chris, where I've tried playing them 4 or 5 times now. Me and Quinn typically, when something new comes out, we'll play sort of 3 or 4 games, Quinn, won't we? Trying all sorts of different things out. And it's generally not a competitive game where talking each other through it, trying to help each other and trying to sort of unlock things. Convocation.
I don't know why you said each other that. It's me talking.
It's you telling me how to play. Yeah, but Convocation hurt my head. Like, I've not seen them played. I've never played them well myself. I've never had them played into me well, and I've never really seen anybody else do any good with them. So, if anyone has any hints, tips, or tricks from Convocation, then feel free to jump in because I've struggled.
I do actually have a tip for Convocation. It's play a different affiliation.
I was just going to say, actually, I'm really tempted to try Convocation.
Oh my god. Of all the affiliations after all this time, you're going to pick and it's Convocation.
I was Jonah and I made the exact same face when you said that.
I probably won't try them. However, I do think they are like a sleeping giant. I really, really think they've got a lot of potential. And I've been looking at a couple of things for them. And I think if I owned any of them, I'd probably give them a run out. But I literally don't own a single one of them. So that's the only thing stopping me. Because I only own Web Warriors. So
You agreed to play something else.
that's
I didn't agree. I didn't sign anything.
We all heard that, right? We all heard that. He's played his last ever Web Warrior game. I'll buy you the miniatures. You can retire Miles. Jonah, you were gonna say something.
I was just going to say on Convocation, Utility Cookie, who's probably well known to people who are on the Discord and TTS leagues, he took them in the second half of the league and in the playoffs and did pretty well with them, playing a very aggressive style. And he's always happy to talk. So I'm going to say I don't have good ideas of how to play them. But if you message Dave, who's Utility Cookie, he will have some good ideas that could probably help you out. In terms of the releases, though, I love this wave from like a design point of view. I thought Dormammu, there's this model that just has this leadership, and everyone's on his leadership. And then you have the Convocation where you attach the leadership to a chosen character. I just thought that was such interesting design space for the game and just opens up so many possibilities for the future that I loved it. I haven't played any of that stuff, but I thought it was really super interesting. And I'm really excited to see what else they do with things like Doom or Apocalypse. I think they've opened the door to some really interesting things moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming it from a thematic side of things, then Andy and Nicky, what were your thoughts on the sort of Convocation Dormammu piece? I know you're a big comic book fan as well. Are they sort of comics that you'd read previously or delved into at all, or?
No, I mean, I was introduced to Doctor Strange and all that was new to me from the movies. I knew of him because he looked like this weird pumpkin-headed thing in the comics. It was horrible. We looked at the Convocation, and hell, we've been talking about it every other week. We're like, one of these days we need to figure out the rules for these guys, as a whole. I love Dr. Voodoo. He was a lot of fun. Blade, Moon Knight, they're lots of fun. I actually enjoyed Clea, too, more than I thought I would in that one game. But as far as how to play the Convocation and wanting to play them, not yet. But I think when Multiverse of Madness comes out, everyone will be like, all right, we need to get them a second try. And maybe that diamond in the rough will come up. I mean, Dave, maybe it is Dave. But somebody will come up and have that aha moment with him. And then we'll copy the rest of what he does, or she does. So.
Yeah, probably. I think it's... John, I think you said, I don't know who said it, but the possibilities it opened up when they released those 2 affiliations, and it was refreshing to see, because I think there's only so many times and so many different ways you can give affiliations rerolls, right? In different rerolls if you're standing on an objective, rerolls if you spend a power and it's your opponent that's gonna, and it was just really nice to see something completely different. And I think with Dormammu, I love the leadership on him. Still not managed to make him work yet. I think I've tried him with so many different combinations of characters. I was convinced, Quinn, wasn't I, that they were going to be my affiliation moving forward, and still never managed to get them to work. Guys, we then had Mini Stravaganza in September, which I thought the guys did such a good job. I watched every part of the MCP side of things. I picked up on a few of the Star Wars stuff as well. The lack of Armada, the X-Wing and Legion, but I was really there for the Marvel stuff. And they revealed a lot in the sort of first couple of days, and then obviously dropped a huge bomb in the form of errated cards. But let's talk first of all about the first two. I think it was the first two announcements they made, which were Hulkbuster and Miss Marvel as well. So Luke, what were your thoughts when you saw those two big characters, maybe on different ends of how good they are dropped?
Scale, yeah. I mean, Hulkbuster, I wasn't necessarily expecting him to drop Hulkbuster actually, but very cool model. I've obviously, I don't know about the US. I doubt you guys have got it yet, have you? But no, but we've just recently kind of managed to get hold of it, and it is a massive model as well. I mean, nothing obviously like your Dormammu and whatever, but I've managed to have a couple of goes with it on the table. It's a good fun model to play. Still need to do Hulkbuster versus Hulk. Obviously, you want to do that kind of thematic game, right? But Miss Marvel, I've never really liked particularly the kind of theme of Miss Marvel. I've never really read anything on her in the comics, so I can't really warm to Miss Marvel personally. So Hulkbuster out of those two would have been my thing, really. I didn't get to say it before, really, but before Mini Stravaganza was my big time of the year, really. Like Midnight Suns are just I like comics, Blade, Moon Knight, Ghost Rider, some of my favorite characters. So I'd kind of already had my like excitement fulfilled, if you like. So although Mini Stravaganza, I'll agree with Rich, was really well done. It was a nightmare for us content creators because it was all dropped in one go, so it was just so hard to cover it all. And I'm sure all you guys would agree with that, whether you're writing about it or whatever. And then to have obviously like, what was it, like a month to 2 months of no real talk or whatever, because they kind of condensed it down into this one packed thing where they just let it all out. So it was very interesting. Maybe we might see them do something similar again next year. We'll have to see.
I think they will. I think they found that very successful, so I think they'll do that again.
Yeah.
Chris, how about you? What were your thoughts on Hulkbuster, Miss Marvel, and maybe sort of Mini Stravaganza as a whole?
I mean, my biggest thing, from obviously other than the update, because no one was expecting it, was just having Rogue announced and seeing a card, and like she's like probably my number. I did a thing. She was my number one favorite character, so I was super chuffed about that. But I'm also a massive Miss Marvel fan, so clearly like anti-Luke, because I've read everything with Miss Marvel in. I'm actually annoyed that it looks like when they do the MCU version of Miss Marvel that they are not doing it properly. Bugging me.
I agree.
But yeah, having actually got her on the table, I have to say, I know she doesn't look good, but playing her with Miles and using that Better Tomorrow card literally won me 2 games, because the movement that Miles gets off that card is insane. It's so far. It's like half the table. So yeah, I really like Miss Marvel. I think I've enjoyed her more than I've enjoyed Hulkbuster, because he's just got big guy smashes.
Well, so let's throw this one out there then. So let's see who's had the biggest Helios laser bombardment attack, right? Because that's the thing now, isn't it? Is how many dice can you roll in one go when you're doing a Helios? Anyone more than 20?
Yeah.
You've had more than 20. When were you playing Hulkbuster?
Occasionally.
Yeah, I really liked it. Jonah, did you expect them to redo all of the cards they did. Obviously, when they announced, and I think they showed us the 4 initial ones, didn't they? Which were Captain America, Shuri, Okoye, and Hulk. No, MODOK.
No,
Yeah.
No Okoye. MODOK, sorry. Yes, not Okoye. MODOK. What were your thoughts? Was it better than getting new characters?
Yeah, Mini Stravaganza was weird because they kept like announcing all that stuff in the run up to it. Like they did the Convocation trailer and then they did Hulkbuster, and we're like, well, what are you going to announce at Mini Stravaganza, guys? You keep announcing this stuff. And then I think the general feeling was they just weren't going to address any cards, and they did. And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a great decision. I think that everyone that they looked at, I expected to get looked at. I think they've addressed certainly the kind of most overpowered ones, if you like, Enchantress, Medusa, and the ones that are a bit under the curve. I was amazed when they changed Bullseye's threat, because I just didn't think they'd go down the road of making threat changes. So I was really impressed with that. Overall, obviously they kind of made that announcement, showed us some cards, and then we've been drip fed information for the last sort of couple of months until the big drop. So we got to see bits and pieces, and yeah, I do think they addressed pretty much everyone that I expected them to. I know some people would be disappointed. Black Bolt's already been mentioned. I think Cable and a lot of people kind of wanted the X-Men to get looked at, thought that perhaps some of them were a bit under the curve. They have said they're not going to do it again. I think I agree with you, Rips, that they probably will, and they just had to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really excited by all the changes.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Quinn, we spoke about this the other day, didn't we? And they have to change all the cards eventually, right? They have to rechange all the formats of all the cards, because you can't have, half of your cards being portrait and the other half being landscape. And I think at that point, it makes sense to then look at certain characters. Luke, I'm going to come to you for this one about one character in particular, because I already know how happy one other person was on this call about the changes, but Ghost Rider. was that a highlight for you?
Yeah, I mean, when did he come out? Was it last year that Ghost Rider came out?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, just ever since he came out, he's whilst being quite difficult to fit into anything and quite difficult to play, he just wasn't quite there for me. But I mean, God, when the new card came out, was super happy with everything they've changed with him. Probably more than they should have done. But I think it was I didn't expect all the immunity to everything. Obviously, the fact that you had a corpse on fire that wasn't immune to incinerate was just beyond me, to be honest. But there we go. But yeah, he's definitely my favourite character, and the fact that the changes they made to him, I couldn't have been happier, really. But I hope that everybody else's favourite characters, if they got a change, that they're happy with them as well. Is what I would say.
I think all the changes were in the right direction. I think they maybe could have gone a little point here or there, more or less on some, but
I don't think Jonah mentioned it, but like defenders, I think it was a bit of a shame. I don't know that they needed to do it with the pentagrams, maybe. But I know they. One thing I forgot to mention, actually, obviously, Atomic Mass Games did say themselves they wanted to obviously get rid of turn 1 plays, which was a big part of the one of the big things they said that they wanted to do with all the changes. And I think for the most part, they've managed to get rid of a lot of it. I think Chris put out an article, I saw you did, mate, a couple of days ago, didn't you, where you were talking about that? It was really well broken down, actually, as to what changes they'd made. And one or two things you might still be able to get away with, but otherwise they've managed to kind of shut that down, which I think makes sense. But yeah, there you go. So, yeah.
No, cool. Andy Nicky, in terms of the changes they've made, especially to some of the older characters, how important do you think it is, especially with those core box characters, that they've made those changes so that when somebody now coming into the game for the first time, because it did feel a bit like, I always used to say to people, wherever you start in this game, buy the core box, because there's so much inherent value in it, right? It's £60, $70, whatever it is that you can get it for. I think it was as cheap as £50 here in the UK on the Black Friday weekend. But now the fact that there's so much more value in that core box, that the likes of Iron Man and Captain America and all these characters that people love, but as I say, were probably left on the shelf a little bit. How important do you think it is that they actually took the time to go back and make changes to those characters?
Yeah, really, I think really important, because it just brought a freshness to, those characters. Like, I know Andy absolutely loves Captain America, and yeah, it just made it kind of new and exciting to play some of the older stuff.
Yeah, I think you kind of had to take it with a kind of a two-step approach of, they did change certain people, they didn't change other. The people they didn't change, as was noted a number of times, could become way better now because of the people who did get changed. And I think that's super important. If you have a core box, you should be able to use it.
Yeah.
Red Skull, Cabal, and then Captain America Avengers, there are two very friendly factions or affiliations to begin with. And I think it's important that they are friendly to play with. They don't have a whole lot of complex rules, but they do fit with what's currently going on for the most part. They're not the most broken. People are just, obviously Black Order is still a highly dangerous affiliation. But if you're learning the game and you pick up Avengers or you pick up Cabal, you're going to do well. You could do a lot of good things with the class.
Yeah, I agree. Daz, what about yourself? What were your thoughts on, I suppose, Mini-Stravaganza as a whole, really, in terms of what they delivered, and in particular those errated cards that they announced?
Basically echo what Jonah said. The way they handled it, all the errated cards, has been amazing. All the characters, what they've done, needed a little change, and it's just been a little tweak. It's not been nothing major, so make that character like, oh, that's an auto take now, and the auto takes are now like, oh, do I really take them? Which is a good thing. Yeah.
I don't know if everyone saw the interview I did with Will, but the one thing I keep harkening sort of back onto is the way that he described the sort of the gap between the best and the least best is probably the best way of saying it, as opposed to the worst, is that they want there to be a gap, but they want the gap to be as close as possible so that there can be unique characters and unique abilities, but they don't want a character like a Coure, for example, where I think I'm right in saying like 70% of rosters in the last TTS season she was in. Like, that's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Whereas now I think it's leveled out a lot. Arun, what about yourself?
Yeah, the Mini-Stravaganza was great. Sorry, I weren't sure if you wanted to know about just rule changes or Mini-Stravaganza in general.
You talk about whatever you want, mate.
Just start talking about Web Warriors.
Yeah. But as you said, going back to where we started off, the Mini-Stravaganza with Hulkbuster and Miss Marvel. Hulkbuster, absolutely amazing. Absolutely love him. Not a huge fan of Miss Marvel personally, but I can see why some people do like her. I just think her design's a bit like goofy at times. It's the same reason I don't like what's his name from the Fantastic? Is it Mr. Fantastic?
Yeah.
From the Fantastic Four, yes.
Yeah, that guy. I don't like him either. He's just weird. But anyway, so the Mini-Stravaganza was great. When they announced rule changes, that really caught me off surprise, and I sort of nearly had like a bit of a breakdown because I was like, oh no, I don't like change. This does not compute. Then when we saw the changes and what we actually got, it was really positive. I think there are a couple of things that could still do with looking at. Obviously, people have mentioned Black Bolt, people have mentioned Cable. No one's actually said 4 yet, which surprised me because I think 4 definitely could do with some tweaks. But I think the beauty of Marvel is because of the way that everything can be taken with everything and the way the affiliation system works and the tactics card system works, that we get a lot of boosts and changes that aren't directly correlating to a specific change to a character. For example, Black Dwarf is a model that everyone wanted to be updated, but he's sort of had a lot of sideways buffs in the sort of general changes around pushes and pulls and tied 4 characters. So I think moving forward, yeah, this might be the end of straightforward changes on character cards for now, but I think we can still look forward to new updates, changing the meta and shifting around what's good and what's playable. I mean, we could get a new box with a new leader for Asgard and Defenders in one, and that would absolutely change everything. So I think that's what's great about Marvel.
Yeah, and it's amazing as well, isn't it, how one character being released with a single tactics card can have ripple effects back through. The example I always use is Crossbones. Right, Crossbones was never played, right? He was in that D tier category of the core box of people that were never taken. All of a sudden, Sin with illicit tech is released, and his value just increases significantly, both in Cabal and Criminal Syndicate. So I agree, Aaron. I think there are some indirect changes and indirect buffs and nerfs that certain characters have had. Let's just talk about the rules that they've implemented, and I'm sure that we've all probably gone over the rules in our own way, shape, or form, and content more than enough times now. So let's not go over them here. But what were your overall feelings? Forget the actual individual characters for a moment, but the overall changes they made to the game. Are you preferring the new set of rules? Do you think they're far more positive? Are you disappointed they're moving away from the sort of turn one plays? What are your thoughts, Daz?
I'm not disappointed about the turn one plays and such, but I am disappointed with the way the crises and that are chose now, and like not having an option. I think is a big deal, and it's going to narrow people's options of what they're actually going to take to play events. Friendly games, you'll still play whatever, but when you play more competitive, I think you'll see a very narrow crisis range.
And when you say you don't have a choice, do you mean just if you win
it's random, isn't it?
So you don't. So you don't get to choose any cards. So
No.
is that the thing you don't like about it?
Normally you would have like two crises that you would normally choose that are the main ones you'd want to play. Then you've got a third one that's a good counter, say, for a different faction. But now you probably won't take that because against certain factions it's an auto loss.
Yeah,
and it could be just randomly drawn.
Chris, what about you?
I mean, 100% echo what Daz just said. That was always my worry, and I've written about it a lot, saying I am genuinely worried that certain crises, people go, well, I can't take that, it's too much a risk, and I can't take that because it's too much of a risk, and you end up with this very narrow pool of crises, which on the flip side, I feel like half the time nowadays you play like demon portals and hammers anyway. So
only half of the time.
Yeah. So like it means actually like maybe we're picking from a narrower pool to the some things we'll never see because they're too risky to play into, like, accidentally play them into Criminal Syndicate. So you go, well, I'm not going to play those. But on the flip side, actually maybe the individual games will be more random. But the turn one plays, I mean, I'm going to miss turn one plays because like half my rosters are based around what turn one BS can I pull off, and how I spend ages just theory crafting it. But now that's all gone out the window. So it's like, oh, cool, everybody else is on the same playing field. So I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, I'm not happy with the roster changes, but time will tell.
Andy, Nicky, what about you guys? What are your sort of overall feelings about the rules changes?
Everything but the scenarios we thought was good. The Infinity Gems was a really nice, welcome addition, that rule change. And then, cleaning up the rules was fine. We're very casual. I mean, we pick scenarios based off what the story is.
Yep.
So we're like, okay, we're going to play an 18-point game or 19-point game today. What scenarios fit that? What other scenario will work with that? So that first part does not affect us in the least bit. But I can understand why it could be very disappointing. And to your points, you may not see a bunch of the scenarios out there because you want to make sure you get something that's going to be really beneficial that you have a little bit of control over.
Yeah, I have a slight concern with the others that we may see, lots of hammers, for example, because it's a neutral extract. Odd number extracts become a bit more difficult unless you're an affiliation that's got a good way to chase down someone if they steal that middle one. And likewise, I'm also slightly concerned we may see Angela everywhere again because you can get that big grab the center extract advantage. But having said that, I'm a really big fan of Random Crisis. It was the one thing I really liked about Battle Realms is that you can just tech your roster as much to just do those round one plays. And you just ended up getting some really interesting variations that you wouldn't get anywhere else. And I think that's going to get better as we get more crises. So there's one coming with Magic and Colossus, right? The new F-shape Shakure.
Well, you get cover, isn't it? On each of the.
You mean the sound spam one? The sound spam one.
Yeah. All the things in the gut one. But But I just think it, the A&D guy said they want people to focus on what's good for their rosters rather than kind of counter picking. So I think you're going to see people, as they lean into that, you are going to get a bit more variety in that they're going to try and take ones that are good for their rosters. So I'm excited for it. I guess we'll see how it shakes out when we get some stats and which crises move around. Jacob from Xavier Protocols always collects those stats for the TTS League. So I'll be interested to see where that shakes out. But I really like the idea of random crisis in general. I'm excited to play it.
Quinn, what about you?
Biggest change I think is going to be for me is Face Me is making its way into a lot of my teams now, just because I can drag people and after they run away. It's like, Black Cat, no, come back with your long move, come die, no.
Arun, what about yourself? Does it affect your play style much in terms of the sort of more randomness of what crisis you're going to be playing?
I don't really mind it too much. I play quite competitively. So obviously big changes to this are going to have some implication on sort of the events I go to. Obviously, I don't mind it too much. I do think that the thoughts that a lot of people have shared about the crisis becoming a little bit more linear, that is going to be the case, but I don't think it's going to be the case with every affiliation. I think some affiliations are going to have to sort of tighten up on what they're taking, whereas some other affiliations might actually do the opposite and start taking things that they wouldn't normally take just because they're going to catch other people off guard. So I think it's definitely an interesting change. I like the change to the Infinity Gems. I can see why some people might not say if you're a Black Order player, because that was sort of a lot of the flex in your roster was being able to sort of decide on sort of a whim. But like I said, I really like the changes. The only thing I wouldn't say I'm not a huge fan of it, but I don't think we need 10 tactics cards each, but that's probably because I only ever use the same 6, so that might be the reason why. So
I don't know about anybody else, but the games I've played under the new rules, one of the hardest things has been deciding which of the 10, because all of a sudden those 2 extra ones just seem to make the decision so much harder as to which ones that you're actually going to take into the game with you.
I'm completely.
Yeah.
I think Quinn's point about Face Me is good because it resonates what you were saying a bit earlier, Rich, that a kind of minor change in things and all of a sudden something that wasn't really on people's radar very much is all of a sudden really important and people are using it a lot more and it's a lot easier to fit in now. Because part of using it didn't get taken before was because you only had 8 tactics cards. Now, maybe Face Me is the answer to random crises. Maybe that's what gets people choosing the odd-numbered extracts, because even if they give them up without priority, they can just lure them back in with Face Me.
Yeah. No, it's good.
I was just quickly going to echo that as well. We were I was on about it with someone on our Discord earlier, Rich. Marked for Death is another card that I think we're going to see come out of the woodwork and just be absolutely everywhere with the extra tactics card slots. And I think it's good and interesting to see the sort of the cycle of tactics cards and characters. It's really, really great and interesting.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just so happy to see new stuff. I hate it when a game gets stale. I've turned up to various events for different games in the past. Some trading card games, and I've turned up and taken my fun list, and the other 19 people at the event are all running a 1 or 2 card variation of the deck that is the meta deck at the moment and the only one you can possibly want to take. And I would hate for this game to get anywhere near that. And I think for me, I'm just happy that we're starting to see so many different things taken into it. And I think to Andy, to your point now, is that, do you know what? You might have only had the game for 2 months. You've bought the core box and a couple of extra boxes alongside it. And you turn up with your Cabal because you love Red Skull and you love Murdoch and whoever else. And you're going to turn up now and you're going to be able to have a good competitive game. Because I think all games should go down, not necessarily to the wire, but, teams shouldn't be getting steamrolled 18-2, 18-1, 22-6, time in, time out. You want a game to be, 16-10 10 at the very least. He says coming off the back of a 17-8 defeat just before we did this video. But for me, I just love to see the variety, and fingers crossed. Hopefully, that only gets better and better. So, of all the new changes, is there one rule you would like to see, either a new rule you'd like to see implemented that they haven't touched already, or a tweak to one of the rules that they haven't changed? Luke, is there anything you can think of? I'll come to you first. It's both the hardest because you don't have time to think, but 7 other people after you have to answer the question as well, so it gets harder for them.
Something to tweak, yeah, that is a tough one. I mean, I didn't get to say before, to be fair, my thoughts on the changes. So, I mean, like I'm more in agreement with Arun and Jonah, sorry, that I prefer the change. I actually quite like the changes, and I think it's always kind of important as well to kind of like listen to what Atomic Mass Games actually say as to like how they want to change the game, because then you're getting a good idea. I think they definitely see the game obviously as more of that kind of beer pretzels casual game, right? So they are trying to shut down those competitive pre-game plans and things like that, and they're trying to turn it into a more random selection so that every game you play is different. And I think that's what's nice about the new changes, is that you're not going to get people turning up, whether you're casual, just turning up to the club and playing with a friend, or if you're going to a tournament. Every game's hopefully going to feel different. And so to be honest with you, Rich, I really couldn't say like what I would change, because I think the changes they've made at for this moment in time are good. I think if a year down the line, I'd probably have a lot more to say on it once we've had time to kind of play with the new stuff, the new rules, and then I'll probably have a lot more to say on it. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Jonah, no, it's okay. But Jonah, what about yourself? Is there anything you would, a rule that you'd like to have seen them add, or a tweak to one of the ones they've already made?
Yeah, I definitely wanted this before, and I think maybe we need to see how it shakes out, whether I still want this. But just choosing whether you have priority or not when you win the roll-off, it always felt weird to me that it was just like, you've won, you've got it, even though in a lot of situations you might not want it. Some affiliations play better without priority, for example. And losing priority was really bad previously. They have evened that out a little bit now with the non-winning player getting to choose threat. But even so, I think that choice offers a really interesting tactical element to the game that I'd like to see added in.
I put a question to you though, Jonah. Would you not say that would then give a bit too much to the player who wins priority role?
What, if they get to choose?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they've evened it out a little bit now.
Because your opposition can choose the threat level.
Yeah. Some players, if you want to not go first, so web warriors, for example, web warriors often like to be the last activation. But if you want that, then you have to give up whether you get to choose secures or extracts. So it's a kind of risk reward thing, I think.
No, I agree. I do like that idea of being able to pick, being able to choose. Chris, what about yourself? Is there any things that you'd like to have seen them add in that they haven't?
I think when it's kind of coming a bit away from the rules. Rules-wise, I'm perfectly happy with what they've done. I'm surprised that they've changed some tactics cards while then still having banned and restricted. If they're happy to change how some of the tactics cards are going to work, it kind of feels like to me, well, you could have fixed the one. So rather than just banning all you've got, we could have fixed it. We could have fixed some of the other. That seems a bit strange. If they're prepared to change tactics cards, which they've now shown they are, why didn't they change a few more of them? And I'd also like to see some more crises. I think there's some crises that just need, like, if they banned panic now, the issue being you can just generate a ton of points with it. Why is legacy virus still a thing? I've literally won games by being behind, but then going, I've got Black Cat, 2 legacy viruses, I win. And it's how you win the game, but it feels bad. And I don't know why. So I think they've got some. I think that's my main thing. They've got some work to do on crises at the moment. But
yeah, I would agree that there are some. and I'm going to come back to Jonah's point earlier, which was around some of the older characters being changed. They've set some precedents now in terms of how certain things are going to work in this game, around dice modification, around victory points being taken off the board and no longer being accessible, about throws and all that kind of stuff. And there's a whole bunch of characters from X-Men onwards who break those precedents that have been set, which to me only screams again that they're going to make some changes to some of those characters that we haven't yet seen because of those precedents that they've set with what they've done. Daz, what do you think are there things that, or is there at least one thing that you would have liked to have seen? Do you agree with Jonah sort of choosing whether or not you have priority, and maybe that's what priority should be?
Yeah, I totally agree with Jonah on that point. I think having the choice is big at the minute because they've changed it as well. So actually, I feel like losing priority at the moment is bigger. It's better than winning.
Yeah, I actually think being able to choose the threat level, right? Forget which board edge you're on, forget whether you're secures or extracts, because they're all random now. The one thing that's not, okay, it's random in the fact that you don't know which 2 cards you're going to get to pick from, but being able to choose the threat level, for me, feels like one of the most powerful parts of the pre-game sort of ritual, if you like. And giving that to the player who didn't win feels quite bad, and I think maybe choosing. Andy, what about yourself? Are there any rules that you think would have been nice for them to include that they haven't done yet, or something they could look at in the future?
I've got 2 thoughts, and probably neither one of them are going to be popular because they add too much complexity. I've always thought it's interesting if I'm on top of a size 5 building and I throw somebody off of it, nothing happens if they're a non-flyer. It's just, you would think there'd be some, and I understand adding impact damage or something like that adds a whole new set of rules and complications to the game that probably no one wants. I just thought that was a funny rule that it's just, you absolutely take no damage no matter how far you get moved off the building, as long as you don't collide, obviously. I'd kind of like to, and again, my wife hates this idea too, so I'll preface that. I would kind of like to see some henchmen rules in the future. Some 1-point henchmen to, for like Black Order, Cabal, Shield, which I'm hoping will eventually show up in the future. Just something, I know that turns it from less a skirmish game more into an army game, and that's not what I want, but I always thought those 2 things would be kind of interesting in the game.
That's a whole big separate topic as well. That is, if that's one thing to come, because that's a big change.
Yeah.
It's a big change, and again, guys, keep me honest. I'm sure I remember them saying many moons ago that they didn't intend to have henchmen, but this is a living game, right? I think Atomic Mass games should be in the realms of never saying never. They should just say things like, it's not in our immediate plans, because I don't think I think they've probably got a good 6, 12, 24-month idea of what's going to be coming out, but I think they can never say never, because this game will evolve and actually, as we play the game, will ultimately have an impact on what happens with it in the future. The more we keep breaking things, the more things they'll go out there and change. I like, Andy, your idea of impact damage. Right? If I pick up Black Cat and throw her off a size 5 building, she should at least take a point of damage as she hits the ground.
She's a cat.
Superhero landing.
Superhero landing.
Come on,
I was just about to say the exact same thing. Read my mind.
Worst example.
One thing I want to throw out there, and I've told Quinn this many times, but a rule that I would really like to see, but it would need some work on at least 1, maybe 2 characters in particular, is I hate the fact that leaders are not mandatory. I think if you want the benefits of the Avengers, right, you need Captain Steve, Sam Wilson, or the Hulkbuster with you to get those benefits. I really think that they should make a leader mandatory for if you want to have the benefits. You can still run it, you can still run Spider Foes without Green Goblin, but you don't get any Spider Foes cards, right, or anything like that, because why would you have access to the cards that he gives, basically?
and has been beat up and half wretch.
Look, Green Goblin's good now. He's got a good leadership ability, and he's a good, solid character. Anybody else want to jump in with anything that they want to see changed?
I want all of the Web Warriors nerfed, so Aaron has to play Convocation.
I'd still play them. I'd still play with Warriors. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to change.
We're going to make you play Convocation. You do realise this, right?
Probably not going to happen.
It is happening. You've already said it. You've spoken it into the world now. It has to happen.
Actually-
I mentioned it briefly.
It's actually been
And now we're
recorded.
holding you to it.
So, yeah.
That's how
Didn't
the
you play
internet works.
Brotherhood the other night, I heard?
Yeah, I tried a Brotherhood team.
Right, yeah, being the inevitable word, yeah.
I won my first game. We turned 2 or 3 or something crazy.
Yeah, but
Second game.
any idiot can win with Brotherhood. That's all I'm going to say.
Throw things around with Magneto.
Yeah.
I didn't even have Magneto. That was the worst part. I had
Oh,
Mystique.
yeah, you played Mystique, didn't you? Yeah.
A bit terrible.
So, guys, we already know. I mean, we actually don't now have any spoilers for next year now, do we? Because we've seen very nice of AMG to announce Juggernaut to us after half of the Europe already have him in hand. Which I always find amusing. Like a week after somebody's got it and painted it, they're like, panel to play, Juggernaut. I think by the time this video goes out, we'll have probably seen Colossus. We'll have probably seen Gambit, but we've already seen them. So we don't have too many things spoiled for us for next year now. If you could pick one thing for next year, so for 2022, whether it be a character, whether it be a new affiliation, whether it be a second leader for your favourite affiliation, what's the, sat on Santa's lap and you get to have one wish. I imagine that Pagani's Santa, by the way, so he's got his hat on, you sat on his lap. you get to make your one wish to Santa. What would it be for MCP for next year? Quinn, start with you.
Oh God! Why me? Why me?
Because you're the child of the group.
If I'm sat on Pagani's lap, that leg is going to have to be taken off. I don't know what I would. I mean, obviously, the initial answer is Doom because Doom is cool, but I think Doom is coming in 2023 because 4-year anniversary of the game. I think that just makes more sense. I'd like to see, more leaders for like all of the affiliations. Like, I want every affiliation to have 2 leaders, apart from maybe 1 or 2 that shouldn't. Like, say Wakanda and Black Order, just because they're supposed to have small, like, size pools of characters. But yeah, just more leaders, and maybe make X-Men less terrible. Maybe.
X-Men less terrible.
You know who the other leader for Black Order is supposed to be, right? There is another leader for Black Order.
It's Black Swan, right?
No, it's not. It's Hela. Hela led Black Order for a while. So she's second.
Another version of Hela.
God, this guy.
Have we not mentioned the point that maybe they could even start releasing cards that enable you to change certain characters that are already and give them a leadership ability? Is that something that they could maybe do? Or do we think that wouldn't work?
I think it's risky territory to start being able to staple leaderships to people, just because, like Rich said, it's already not mandatory to take a leader to gain some bonuses. So I think if you could just sort of...
It wouldn't be universal. It would be like, I don't know, you would only be able to attach that card to that specific character, so that they could change additional characters to enable them to be a leadership as part of that affiliation.
So, say, if they decided down the line that actually they wanted Hood to be a leader for Criminal Syndicate, give him a...
Yeah.
I think that could be interesting, but honestly, I think what we would see is just a new version of that character.
Yeah.
Represent different timeline, because I think an important part of the design process for AMG is capturing each character at a certain point in time, and on top of that, it means they can release another character box, which as a business is what they want to be doing, isn't it? So I think we're more likely to see, say, a new and updated version of the Hood, or a new and updated version of Shuri that's completely different. It's a new character box, new model, new cards, and that's how we get new leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah, what about yourself? Wish list.
I want more cosmic stuff. I want Adam Warlock. I want Nova. I want Wraith, which is little essential. Just if anyone hasn't read them, the Conquest and Conquest Annihilation story arcs are amazing and have so many awesome characters. And I want just all that stuff in the game. I love the Guardians so much. I'm so happy. I just started playing the computer game today, actually. And I'm so happy that the MCP models are getting a buff that I just want more cosmic stuff.
Yeah, the Guardians feel really good now. But I would love to see Adam Warlock as a second leader for them. They could even do Yandu, because as we've seen in MCP, you don't necessarily have to have ever been a leader of an affiliation in the comics to be a leader in the game. So Yandu is another popular character that could be pretty cool as well. Chris, what about you? What are the wish lists for you? I mean, you've already got all you've got banned, so you can't possibly want something else on top of that.
It's a handful of characters. Actually, I had it down to 3, and so I have got 3 characters. But because Jonah said Nova, I want a Champions affiliation. I've read like the whole recent run of like the young guys, so like Miles and Miss Marvel. I just need Nova, and then so if I have a Champions affiliation, that would be great. So that's where the card thing is coming. Being able to put a card onto like Miss Marvel rather than having a whole new one. But the 3 character one would be Spider Woman, Squirrel Girl, which I know loads of people really hate the idea of a Squirrel Girl. And then I want Psylocke because I've got Rogue, so now I need Psylocke. And then I'm like golden, I don't need to buy it. No, I'll still buy everything. Have to have Psylocke.
Daz, what about you? What's on the top of your wish list as a Black Order player, or indeed just as a lover of the game?
I'd love a 2-pointer for Black Order, obviously, but I'd love to see Apocalypse in the game.
Yeah, Apocalypse is high on my wish list. My theory on Apocalypse, I think I did a video way back early when I first started, and it was big threat characters I'd like to see in the game, like 7+ threat.
Back when your content was terrible because I wasn't in it. Yeah.
Kind of took a downward slope actually when you joined, Quinn. But they kind of stole what I wanted for his affiliation with Dormammu, in that he could just pick any 4 characters and they would be his 4 horsemen. And they sort of did certain things based on whether they were, death or whatever else. But yeah, I'd love to see Apocalypse as part of an X-Wave. Andy, what about yourself?
Thunderbolts with Red Hulk, because that'll finally give me Punisher in affiliation. And then I'd just like to see some alternative forms of other people, the multiverse people. Gladiator Hulk, maybe. But that kind of just the symbiote Spider-Man. I'd like to start seeing just the people that are out, just other forms of it.
I'm just looking at Arun and then just like pop, his neck snapped. He lifted the moment anyone mentions symbiotes. That's it. That's Arun all over. Arun, come to you. What do you think?
I mean, you've just hit the nail on the head there. I want Scream, Toxin, Phage, Hybrid. I just want every symbiote there is. I'd love Null as a leader. That would be absolutely sick. Like a 9-threat Null. And your entire team gets symbiotic instincts or something. That'd be really cool. So yeah, anything symbiotic. And then maybe for Web Warriors, I'd like Iron Spider. It'd be really cool if we got a big release, a big reveal around the new Spider-Man movie. Because it is building up to be
next year.
Yeah, it's building up to be such a huge deal, isn't it? The new Spider-Man No Way Home. So I think it'd be really cool if we got Iron Spider and a second leader for Spider Foes together in a box. That'd be absolutely class. But yeah, like I said, any symbiote will do. Honestly, I'd just be happy with Scream, Toxin, Phage, Hybrid. Absolutely any of them. Lasher even will do for me. I don't mind.
I think, yeah, I do like the symbiotes. But I think you're right. I think they're not stupid, are they? They're going to time their announcements around other things that are happening, outside of MCP, but in the larger Marvel world, whether that's big comic book releases or big movie releases. I was really surprised they didn't do Eternals. I really, really thought they were going to announce, 4 or 5 character Eternals affiliation to coincide with the movie. That was the one that I thought they would do. Luke, what about you?
couple of things I'd like to see in terms of leaders. Defenders definitely need a second leader, without a doubt, and probably some new cards, especially after the changes. But my Midnight Suns, I'd love to see Morbius, maybe a second leader, as Morbius would be wicked. In terms of a new affiliation next year, it's got to be Fantastic Four for me. I love Fantastic Four comics. Aaron, you don't like them.
But yeah, weird man, go away.
And obviously the villain that comes with him, Doctor Doom, though, because Doctor Doom's a big villain in the Marvel universe, and we haven't seen him yet. So that would be my wish list for next year.
My fear is they're going to pull off what they did with Cassandra. You're going to have an X-Men big villain for the next one, but it's not going to be Apocalypse. It's going to be Nimrod. Because how many people know about Nimrod? But he is technically like one of the most powerful foes they ever had. So that's my guess. They're going to pull some crazy crap like that.
Yeah, because
Nimrod's like a Sentinel dude, Aaron.
He's like a what?
Sentinel dude leader thing.
He's a Sentinel leader.
I've got to be honest, I've not heard of Nimrod, to be fair. So.
Yeah, he's the Sentinel that they can't kill. He learns from. He's like Doomsday from the DC. You can't kill him.
And is he the one in the 90s cartoon that made the other Sentinels? That's Nimrod, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, one of them.
Right.
Did it, but Nimrod was the white and purple one.
Yeah.
Because they just love to do that. So, yeah. But yeah, he basically, you can destroy him. He'll learn how you destroyed him, and you can't do it again. So that's what basically started Days of Future Past. I
really like the shout that we're going to get an X-Men big Ultimate Encounter next year. I think that feels overdue. We've had some. We've had. Dormammu was a real surprise for me. I was really shocked with Dormammu because not that people don't know about him, but he's not a popular. He's not a popular villain outside of people that are sort of into the comic books and that weird thing that turned up at Doctor Strange, right? I've come to bargain. The number of memes that were out there when Dormammu got released, but I think we are overdue a big X-Men baddie in terms of it, and I don't think it's going to be Apocalypse. I really don't think it's going to be Apocalypse. I think it could be Sentinels. I think we could get a Sentinel leader of some sort, whether it's Nimrod or one of the other ones, and then some Sentinels to go with it. We've already got the really cool Roxxon terrain piece, haven't we, to go with it? So, guys,
awesome.
It's really good. I hate Colossus's arm though.
There's an option to not use that, isn't there? Though.
No.
Well, what you can do is you can mod it and you can put Cassandra Nova stood on it, so she's just
What, with a little spurt of water from a fire hydrant?
Spurt of water from a fire hydrant, yeah. Guys, any more for any more? Has anyone else got any comments? Anything they want to add, just as a sort of final thoughts in terms of like where the game's at, what you're enjoying about it, what you'd recommend people to go do with the game?
Avoid playing Quinn.
Because Quinn's the issue. You play the game.
Have fun.
Great that you can genuinely play it as casuals, like Andy was saying. You've got those ultimate encounters, which is like another different. One of these games where actually you've got three of you. Oh, I can't play MCP3. Yes, you can, because you can play someone with the big bad against two teams, so you can actually play it in odd number. But just play the game. There's so many. You don't have to play it competitively like a bunch of us. Just there's so many other ways to play the game, and so that's when Andy said about using henchmen. That's where I think you can put henchmen. Stick them in an ultimate encounter. You don't have a competitive scene, but we still get them. So I
think it's worth adding as well, because something that a lot of people ask me is, I kind of get as a new player looking in, you see people buying every single release, and that can be a bit off-putting because it is a big investment. So something that people say to me is, can you play just one affiliation? And as I said earlier, I play quite competitively, and I do believe you can just play one affiliation. So don't be put off by the idea of thinking that in order to stand a chance and to even play, you're going to need to go back and buy the last 50 boxes. You don't. You can pick an affiliation, buy the characters you like, buy maybe one other box that you like, and you've got a roster. And I think that's an important thing to stress, because it's not something that gets talked about a lot. And I know a few people think, I don't want to get into it because I can't afford to buy everything. And you don't have to, which is the great part about the game.
Well, to be fair, we were saying earlier, like with the changes as well, the core box now is even more valid than it probably was before. So if you buy the core box, you've got a full roster. You can play 2 different rosters out of that, I'm pretty sure still. So squads, affiliations. So
Mark from the Roster Doctor has done these for a long time now. We actually did there was a content creators, and once again, content creators and Quinn event that happened. Once again, he's never pressed record on a YouTube video or taken pen to paper for writing MCP content ever. But
I contributed to an article, motherfucker.
But the 3-box challenge, and go to Across the Bifrost or any of the places and look at that 3-box challenge. And the whole idea was you had the core box, everything that came in it, and then any other 3 character packs, and we all built rosters. And there was some really competitive rosters in there if you want to play competitive. So it's easy to do, right? For 50 quid for the core box, and then 3 packs on top, you can turn up to an event and run a competitive list if that's what you want to do. Because I think sometimes we're probably all a bit guilty of putting together the absolute best possible list, and what you've realised is that you've bought 7 character packs, and all you're buying them for is the 7 tactics card that come in them. So you've dropped 200 quid on 7 cards effectively. But Arun, to your point, absolutely not. Coming into this game fresh, there's no need to go out and buy everything and spend. I think I worked it out. It's up to like $3,500 now, if you were to go and buy everything from scratch, which is absolutely crazy.
Or 7 character boxes and just make do, and you'll be fine. I'm doing okay with it at the minute. You'll be all right.
Right, my wife's out of earshot now.
Any more for any more?
Yeah, shout out on one of my favourite ways to play games, not just MCP but previous games, is team tournaments. And there's been a few this year, a couple on TTS, and then your big one, Rich, that you ran a couple of weeks ago. So you get a shout out. I love team tournaments. I think they're a great way to play the game. I love the restrictions on rosters so that no one ends up with everything they want. The kind of extra layer of trying to pick your matchups and the camaraderie of winning and losing together. I can't wait for more next year. There is one this weekend. I can see Arun. You can't make the one this weekend, but I can't wait for more of them. I love team tournaments. I'm looking forward to getting involved in some more of those.
Yeah, I'd never been to one before, Rich's. I think it was absolutely great. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Your team event went better than some singles events I've been to. I think it was amazing. I'm looking forward to doing that again next year. So the reverse Oreo will return.
It's definitely something we'll do again. Obviously, it was a bit of an experiment in terms of the numbers of players and whether or not it was possible to do in a single day. Because that was my big worry, was it just too much for a one-day event? But it seemed to work well, and people seem to enjoy it. We had people coming from all over the country, Daz, didn't we?
Yeah, all the way from Cornwall up to Derby,
which is probably
about
not
5
even
hours.
Probably quite a short drive for you guys over in the US, Andy. It's about 300 miles.
Yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon. You never know, though. I do go.
Maybe
over
we'll have to do a content creator trip over there, over to the US. Get some.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, really cool. Guys, any last thoughts before I close this off?
Just hopefully next year we'll see some buffs to the affiliations that really need it, like Web Warriors. I mean, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
Just keep banging that drum. Keep banging that drum. Well, guys, there will be links down to everyone, again, apart from Quinn. There'll be links down to everyone who's joined us
today.
There'll be a link
down there to Quinn's OnlyFans page.
But to everyone who's joined me, thank you so much for taking the time. It ended up being a really fun conversation, which I thought it was going to be. Anyway. So check out all of their content. There's some really, really good stuff, whether it's written word, whether it's battle reports, character breakdowns, all good stuff. So head down in the description, you'll see links to all of those guys. And I'll just wish everyone a Merry Christmas. You can probably see those that have made an effort. Quinn?
I did.
Yeah,
Quinn?
I'm wearing my brand new Yogscast hoodie that I've owned for 2 days.
What What is worrying, guys, is that
it looks like, to be honest, not online.
what's worrying is Andy didn't get the memo. This is just his living room, right? This is just.
That's not the studio.
You look it around, it is. So,
But no, everyone at home, I hope you have a Christmas holidays, just a break from everything. Make sure you get plenty of time in to play some games. I know we've got plans meeting up in person with a group of friends to play MCP and all sorts of other cool things as well, because I've got my Hero Quest box as well now, guys, that I'm very much looking forward to playing. So, but guys, from me and everybody else who's joined me, stay well, have a great time, stay safe over the holidays, and we'll see you all next year. Bye, guys, for now.
thanks.
Bye.